Australia Limited, in association with the News and NWS Channel 9, present the South Australian Sportstar Awards. And now here's your host, Tony Charlton.
Thank you. Well, another year and another special occasion, and that's fine. We're here, I suppose, because we all aspire to the kind of deeds that our champions are capable of performing, and that the champions over the past year have performed, and the knowledge that they're here with us tonight. And also, I suppose we're here because of the rich tradition which has been developed over the years by the News and by Caltex, and we're all the better for that. And I suppose we're also here because of the warm personalities always introduced at this time as part of the whole production. And by way of example, may we introduce our first guest celebrity for this year, an America's Cup and an Admiral's Cup skipper, an Olympian and a world champion. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir James Hardy.
And a good night's sleep.
Not too many good nights' sleep, I don't think. Tell me, your comment on and your reaction to the marvellous happenings at Newport.
Well, Tony, I think it was the ultimate reward for preparation. I think that 67, when I first went over to watch Bus Mosbacher go about winning the America's Cup, it was pretty clear to see that preparation was the thing that we lacked as challengers. And year by year we've strengthened the rungs of the ladder, and one big thing about Alan Bond is his ability to strengthen the various rungs. And believe me, 1983 you could run up and down the ladder. You couldn't in previous years.
As an executive member of the Australian Yachting Federation's Racing Rules Committee, how did you personally feel that the New York Yacht Club handled the Kiel affair?
Well, I guess to look at it from their point of view, retaining the Cup was what it was all about, and the America's Cup committee was made up predominantly of skippers that had successfully defended the Cup. So their aim was to keep it, at all costs almost, and I think they pushed it, but I did like the fact that they pushed it before the races. They could have let it go and we could have won, and they could have had all sorts of recriminations, but it's since been proved to be legal in the IYRU meetings in London last November, and the ironical thing was that their removing ballast from Liberty was proved to be illegal, and you mustn't do that again.
So James, did you have any doubts about the validity of the design yourself?
No, I didn't, because the rule said that under the water the boat could be any shape you like, and provided it measured. And the international measurers said it was a 12 metre, and to me they were made up of very senior people. The chairman of the International Yacht Racing Union measurer, Tony Watt, and if he says it's right, believe me, it's right.
Now, Police Car and other great yachts that you have raced, mention them all, the characteristics and the memories.
Well, Police Car is the most recent yacht, and that had a bit of magic. It was a wild name and a wild performing boat, very fast, and I sort of fell in love with that in the 79 Admiral's Cup. I was actually steering Impetuous, one of the winning 3 boats, and we careered down the Irish Sea. That was all pretty scary, but Police Car got right over on her side at one stage and bent the wind gear on the top of the mast, so that's a fair angle of heel, and but she got there, and to me she had that bit of flair. And my first ocean racing boat was a boat called Runaway, designed by a fellow South Australian, Alan Blackburn, and I have this theory that at least one of Australia's Admiral's Cup yachts should be designed by an Australian. I've been pushing that, but I'm afraid I'm not winning, and I did have an Australian design, and made the team in '77, but my boat really wasn't quite fast enough.
Why are you not winning? Is this the apathetic streak that we seem to recognise in ourselves?
I think just that we're so far away geographically from the sort of big yachting centres that we need guys like Ben Lexon with Australia 2 to finally make a breakthrough, and it takes a lot of doing.
Anyhow, I stopped you when you run through some of the famous boats that you've been associated with.
Oh no, I think after that they were dinghies, and they are very wet and a fair way back now, Tony.
Now, in any of the 3 America's Cup campaigns with which you were directly associated with as skipper, did you ever conceive that we could take the America's Cup off the Americans?
Clearly. I thought that in 1970 we could have won, but we really lacked experience, and you needed a year like that, a year when the Americans' design was down a bit, and I think they'd spoilt Intrepid in 1970. She was a faster boat in '67, and she was a faster boat again in '74. But Britain Chance had actually spoilt the boat, and so we were up against a slightly inferior 12-metre, and we could have won. Well, I think the same happened last year. We definitely had a design edge. We caught the Americans. Well, I had to get a Dutch guy over to design Liberty, and 200 million people can't find a Yank to design their boat. It's a worry.
Can you compare Greatle 2, Southern Cross, and the original Australia with Australia 2?
Not really. I think Australia 1 and Australia 2, that they were definitely from the same family, but the other 2 were really like Clydesdales, and the last 2 were like Robert Sangster horses. They really were magnificent machines, the 2 Australias. And Ben Lexon's yachts, and I've sailed against Ben for years, and his dinghies always had a bit of magic in the appearance and in the performance.
May we digress for a moment? You've recently been involved in probably the biggest controversy of your life. You are representative of a committee which is putting forward the need for changing the Australian flag, the Australian colours, and the Australian anthem. Do you regret all of that?
Well, now wait a minute, Tony. Let's get this into perspective. I've said that I think that the Australian flag is not readily identifiable as Australian, and Ausflag in '88, we're behind Advance Australia Fair, behind the national colours are blue and gold on the coat of arms and in the Order of Australia, and to me our sporting colours are green and gold, sure, but the national colours I think are blue and gold, and the flag is red, white and blue, and I love that because that's a real sign of freedom. You look at countries like the United Kingdom and Holland, France, United States. So to change the colour of the flag, I'm against that. All I was hoping was that we could just put the coat of arms in the middle of the Union Jack, or do something to make the thing more readily identifiable. But if we fly it enough and often enough, well then I guess the problem's overcome. So I'm like John Newcombe, I don't want to fight in the street over it, but boy oh boy, the RSL boys are getting into me and calling me a treachery and all those sorts of things. Perhaps I should say to them that the Dutch were the first here, when it was New Holland, it should be just red, white and blue.
Right, you are still glad of the opportunity of expressing a view about it.
Fair enough, Tony.
Mm-hmm. Now let's return to where we started, Newport, and the fantastic thing that happened there, and you were very much a part of it. You say that the boat was fine and it had your confidence. What about the crew? When we were down and well down, did you still think that Bertrand and his boys could pull it off?
Well, I did, provided we could keep the solidarity that we'd built through the whole summer. We really had a winning thing going, and I know the football gentlemen here, Max Bashir and co, you hear of these Vince Lombardis that say winning is a habit, and so unfortunately is losing. Well, we had a winning habit, and I really think that it was like a big wheel. It was going to take a lot of stopping, and those first couple of breakdowns were really were really bad, and then we had a very easy win, and that did us nearly as much harm as the losses, because to me the race that we should have made it 2-2, I think we were a bit cocky, and if it had been Australian rules football, we were playing the man and not the ball, and he got past us at the start and we never saw him again, and instead of being 2-2 we went to 3-1, and it was pretty uphill from there.
A chat with the Master Mariner. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea in the sky, and all we ask is a tall ship and Jim Hardy to steer her by. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much, Tony.
Thank you. The first of our special guests in the NWS 9 telecast, live from the Festival Centre here in Adelaide, of the Caltex and News Sportstar of the Year. So everyone is on standby for the presentations, which will shortly be upon us. But before then, we have a second celebrity to introduce to you.
The South Australian Sports Star of the Year Awards are presented by Caltex and their distributors. Tolmer Fuel Distributors Keith, servicing Keith and Tintinara areas. Central Fuel Supply Kapunda, servicing Gawler and Lower Northern areas. GW and PR Barch Burkwood, servicing the Adelaide Hills area. Star Petroleum Adelaide, servicing the metropolitan area. And Milton and David Turner, servicing Kangaroo Island. These Caltex distributors are proud to be associated with the South Australian Sports Star of the Year Awards for 1983.
Second celebrity guest has been a household name in the households of international cricket for decades. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of cricket, Alan McGilvray. Love that tune, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Julia Howe wrote that in 1861, I think, not so long ago, and after visiting army camps in and around Washington, D.C. You weren't in the army then, were you, Alan?
1861. I think I was broadcasting then, wasn't I?
You might have been broadcasting then,
Yeah,
because he's
well
got 200 test match commentaries under his belt. What a fantastic record and what a joy for us.
Well, a great joy for me, Tony, to make that contribution to cricket. I've been fortunate to meet so many wonderful people, and it's been a great part of my life. And I wouldn't have changed the way I've lived in life now after the cricket experience I've had.
Doyen commentator, the voice of cricket, distinguished veteran. I guess those accolades rest easy on your shoulders.
I don't know. It's getting a bit tough now. Some of these boys in the press are after me now, you know. How old is he? I would say I'm as young as I feel.
Yeah. And I think you're very young.
Thank you very much, Tony. I feel it right now.
Yeah, well, it comes across in your voice anyhow. With what recall, may I ask, of those who have been with you through the years, the Jim Swantons, the Arthur Gilligans, the John Arletts?
Well, Arthur Gilligan, a great man. Of course, I was a brat when he and Richardson got together, and they made whatever I am now. They were the contributors to my life. But Arthur was a wonderful man. He would never say anything against either of us. And I remember once in Brisbane we had to talk for 40 minutes. There was no play, the rain was falling, but Radio Australia had to be occupied. There's something like 40 million people there. So I said to Vic, what'll we talk about? And he said, I don't know. So I tossed a coin. If they play, what roller would you use? I won the light roller, he won the heavy, so we went on for about half an hour, and we were fresh out of words by then, talking about two rollers. So I turned to Arthur and I said, well, Arthur, you've heard this conversation. I was quite convinced I was right, with whatever roller I had. And I said, what do you think? He said, you know, being a man that would never offend either of us, I wouldn't use a roller at all. That put us on the spot a bit, because we had to go on for another 8 minutes. John Arlett, a great character. Didn't know a lot about the technique of cricket, but a wonderful flair, a great chap to work with. he could lift my broadcast up or drop me too if he wanted to, because he had a wonderful control of the English language. But after lunch he wasn't so good, you see. At lunch he used to... he always boasted about drinking 7 bottles of red wine a day, but 2 of them before lunch, or during lunch. And he'd sit at these desks, and of course in England we get wonderful boxes there, green baies, and he'd eat shallots and onions and cheese and red wine all over my particular area. So I had to ask him, would he mind moving to his own area, which he promptly did. And he drank 3 bottles of wine. Then he'd go downstairs and he'd go and have a sleep and he'd go and do his work. I never saw him after lunch, you know. He was always up till lunch, but a thoroughly good character, good chap to work with. Charles Fortune, now there was a man. He foolishly decided to name all the trees in Adelaide Oval, and he went to a lot of trouble, and some lady wrote in and said he didn't know what he's utter rubbish. But he was a great fellow in many ways. He was a great admirer of seagulls and people. And I remember in Durban one time I said to him, there's a very, very nice young lady down here who's come up and said she can't get in, she's an Australian, and could she come in the box? Certainly not, certainly not. And I said, well, I'm sorry about that, let me introduce you. And when he saw her, she was lovely, so he said, yeah, you can come in the box. So the first broadcast he did with her for half an hour, he was cuddling this girl and really lapping it up, and did a broadcast with this beautiful girl resting on his shoulder. An unusual character, old Charles, you know. But you meet some wonderful people, you know, like Victor York Richardson. He was the greatest broadcaster ever I knew, and everything I learned from him. Sense of humour, great character. I remember when I first played against him, he was a god to me. I was only a kid playing for New South Wales, and Alan Kippax put me in a position just short of the bat, about 5 yards away, and he looked at me and says, nick off. Actually didn't use the word nick off, but I won't. But I looked at my Captain Kippax, and he said, just stay there, don't you worry about that fellow. Because they were great friends, you know. And someone bowled the ball, and it hit the members' gate in the full. When I took a line on it, it must have missed me by that much. And I just looked over at my captain, and then he said, why don't you do something about this brat here, so to speak. And then Kip said, hey, Al, I think you better drop back a yard or 2. No one's more happy than me on that. And then, of course, I got to know Victor York, and what a great joy I had with him. Yes. Vic and Peggy and Arthur and Penny Gilligan, and that's my wife and myself. Yeah. What a ball we had for a few years, but it all cut off because the silly fellows went away. They just didn't go on living.
It didn't go on.
No, but I had great fortune in my life having those men to help me. And what I've ever done, I don't know, but it was a great joy to have their company and to benefit from the friends they introduced me to. I was a very lucky man, yeah.
What about good God he's out, Jim Swanton?
Oh, dear old Jim, yes. Well, he was broadcasting a box one day, and I had to do a summary to Australia, and Jim was down the end of the box, and he was flipping his fingers. And I went on with my summary, and I did my piece for Australia, and he got up and abused me, and he said, they want to listen to me, not you. So Arthur just pushed him out of the box, gave him a reef under the tail, lifted him down 3 steps at Manchester, don't you insult my Australian friend. But Jim was a great character, he was a great writer, bombastic fella, but I got along very well with Jim. I think he was one of the most sincere writers, and I call sincere writers in those years very sincere, and Jim was a very honest writer, and he had a very careful of expression, whether it be England or Australia. And sometimes that doesn't happen in the broadcasting world, you know. Get fellas like Trevor Bailey and people, they say, oh, you say, old chap, you know, don't you think this is wrong? He said to me one day, we will win this match. And I said, who's we, Trevor? England, of course, old chap. And I said, well, I thought we were talking to 40, 50 million people. They don't worry about those people in India or Pakistan, so they wouldn't worry about we. That's how I see it, and that's how I call it. So he said one day, you know, I was behind the box, and he said, you know, Miller, now he wasn't a bad cricketer, Miller, but I had no trouble with him. And I was listening to this behind him, and I heard Norman Yardley saying, why? He said, oh, I used to, when he came into bowl, I'd brush and imagine when he'd fly away. I used to make Miller mad. And he'd get mad, and he'd bowl me bounces, and he'd throw his hair back. And I got a bit cranky because Keith's a friend of mine, and so I went on the later, and I was interested in that comment you made, Trevor, about Miller. Oh, why? I said, well, I looked at the records while he bowled against you 15 times, he got you out 12 times. And he said, oh, he was a bad cricketer, you know. Actually, Keith got him out twice in 15 innings, but I didn't let him. That's what you go face up with those fellas in the box, and you get the good and the bad. But generally it's been, you know, they're pretty good fellas.
Now, you broadcast your first England-Australia test in 1938, and that therefore would have been Bradman's second last tour to England.
Yeah.
Give us the McGilvray team, best of the lot from that time on.
1938. Yeah, that's that 48 side was the good one, you know.
Who are we opening with?
I'd open with Morris, and then I'd have Bobby Simpson with him. And there's a fellow I think I should pick, a fellow named Bradman. I think he might just make the grade. Then I'd go for Neil Harvey. If you want to question me on this, please do, because I'm open to that. Harvey, I've got...
No arguments so far.
Then I think of a man with great courage and a great captain. Did a lot of silly things off the field, but did some wonderful things on the field. Great friend of mine, Ian Chappell at 5. Then I'd look at Keith Miller. Must look at him. He'd be 6. Ray Linville, 7. Don Talon, that might surprise you. That's 8. And then I'd be looking at Dennis Lilly. And then Bill O'Reilly. Of course, I think he was the greatest. And then the last one, of course, I'm picking a team entirely on the association between Australia and England. In England and Australia, I'd say W.A. Bill Johnson. That's my 11. And that's 7 out of the 1948 side, probably a bit many, but I don't think so. They were great.
Well, hasn't it given everybody something to talk about and to argue about in the living rooms of Australia tonight? Good health to you always, and when you get to those days where you're going to be recalling this fabulous life you've led, and thank you for allowing us to be part of it. I hope that as far as cricket's concerned, that all the overs come up as maidens and all the innings you played were centuries. The voice of cricket, Alan McGilvray.
To keep this big world turning, we put technology to work for you. We put CX3 in your car, a golden fleece restaurant, speed your family too. The signs point to the future, ensure it's where our roads will lead. The Caltex Sportstar signs the sign of expertise.
This program is being carried by a huge regional network, and we are delighted about that. A huge regional network which obviously is sourcing a great area. A special welcome, therefore, to viewers through SES 8 at Mount Gambier, RTS 5A at Loxton in the Riverland, GTS 4 at Port Pirie, and GTS 5 at Port Lincoln, and BKN 7 Broken Hill. And sponsorship of the telecast is brought to you by your Caltex distributor. It is the Caltex and the News Sports Star of the Year presentation live through NWS 9 in Adelaide. The Sports Star of the Year awards, of course, are always enhanced, I'm sure, by the attention and the attentiveness of our hostess, Joanna Moore. Would you welcome her? And she brings on our guest of honour, Alan McGilvray, who'll be handing out the awards. Once more with feeling.
Yes, it seems to be 5 years, I think, now. And I think it's an extra special year because of all the relay stations taking part.
Yeah, delighted you're here, Joanna.
Thank you.
And I'm sure Alan is too. The parade of the champions commences. Here we go with the big awards for the year. Racing driver, Vern Schuppen. Vern Schuppen swept to victory in the Le Mans 24 Hours Road Racing Classic in France, the greatest endurance race in the world. Driving a Porsche, he won the 51st running of the Classic with a record distance and a speed of 210 kilometres per hour. 2 co-drivers these days. One too many, Vern?
No, not at all, Tony. It's pretty hard work doing a race of 24 hours duration, and really speaking, we do the equivalent of 12 Grand Prix in that event. So last year I drove for a total of 9 hours, which was still, you know, even 2 other drivers was fairly solid going.
Yes, very demanding. Now, this average speed of 210 would, of course, include pit stops.
Yes, we had a total of 25 pit stops, each one of sort of 3 or 4 minutes for refuelling and changing brake pads and tyres and things like that.
And are the nighttime average speeds much less than the daytime?
No, in fact, the average speed at night is about the same. You know, if you go around that track so many hundred times, you sort of know the thing like the back of your hand, literally, and we can maintain, in some cases, we go a little bit faster at night because the engines run a little bit better in the cool conditions, and we sort of maintain that speed right throughout, with the exception of bad weather conditions, rain and so on.
And I've been dying to ask you, how could a door blow off? Surely unlikely, but also very critical.
It was one of those things where it was actually a design fault, some fatigue in one of the hinges. In fact, the car I drove was the car that I'd also used the year before, and that was a last-minute arrangement. I was down to have a brand new car which was crashed, not by me, by another team member about 2 weeks before the race.
Be very popular.
And so at the very last minute they said, you know, we're preparing your old car, the car you used last year, and I had a certain sentimental attachment to that car. I'd finished second in it the year before, so in some ways I was pleased to be back in the same car, but the door hinge fatigued, and in some testing in the wind tunnel after the event, they found that the wind speed, or the airspeed over that section of the body, was 900 kilometres an hour, because as you know, the airspeed speeds up over certain sections, and it literally, with a little bit of fatigue, it sucked the door off at maximum speed, which was a bit of a shock at the time.
Probably like a great explosion, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and you know, the road was sort of going by very fast.
Now, just quickly, if I may, fantastic performance. What were the 3 great moments within the race for you?
I think avoiding an accident on the second lap. An over-exuberant driver tried to outbrake my teammate Jackie Hicks at the end of the straight, and he lost control, and he took Jackie Hicks off, which actually helped me win the race. He almost took me off too, so you know, I got through that one. And then taking the lead after 3 hours was very exciting, and we actually maintained that lead then right until the end. And I suppose finishing the race 60 seconds, and that's all it was, after 24 hours ahead of the next car, after we'd had the problem with the door coming off, and then we had an overheating problem with the engine as a result of that. So just sort of being in front and, you know, having a win of such a close margin after really we'd gone over 5,000 kilometres. If we'd gone, I think, a quarter of a second a lap slower, we would have lost the event.
Incredible.
So that was pretty exciting.
Well, there he is, one of the top candidates for the Gold Oscar, Vern Schuppan. Now the door blew off. Now he's got his Oscar. And here's our 1982 winner, Athlete of the Year, Glynis Nunn. Commonwealth Games gold medalist Glynis Nunn achieved her goal by finishing in the top 10 in the heptathlon event at the World Championships in Helsinki. And was that experience, was it intriguing or was it daunting?
Well, it was experience. That's what I put it down to. I didn't perform as well as I had wanted to perform. So I put it down to experience, and I did learn a lot from being there and competing against the best in the world.
And the highlight of the Games for you?
Let me think. No, I think the highlight of the Games was to get back home. It was very hard being away from home for so long and changing your whole routine because my husband, we train together and we live together and we do practically everything together, so that's the right thing to say too. But to be away away from home for 7 weeks is a really a big change to your life. Oh boy.
We'll be able to laugh about that for a while, won't we? Should we be confident or just hopeful about Los Angeles?
Well, the work that I'm putting in at the moment, I'm confident that I can perform much better. I'm working on my weak events, which are the high jump and the javelin, and they are improving very rapidly, especially my high jump. So I'm hoping for good things to happen. I've already completed the state title, and it's my 3rd highest score. And the thing that I was so happy about was that I trained through it. I did a heavy session of weights on the Friday, came out and competed on the Saturday and the Sunday, and went very well.
Good. Now, has the introduction of this heptathlon been a success?
Well, I think it is probably, the heptathlon is probably a little easier than the pentathlon because it's 4 events on the first day, 3 events on the second day, whereas the pentathlon was 5 events just on one day, which means that you've got it a little bit easier. It's very hard to get up the second day and sort of come out and perform again. But I think overall, if you look at the world performances, the javelin is one of the weakest events in, well, most heptathlons. You can take away some, but in most heptathletes, the javelin is their weakest event. So I think in, say, 5 years' time, there are going to be some really top heptathletes.
And I think you'll be one of them now.
Well, this is going to be my last year.
Is it really? You've decided to give it away?
In heptathlon.
Well, we wish you all the best anyhow, and you will share your Oscar with your husband, won't you? Thank you, Glynis Nutt. Number 3 in our lineup was twice runner-up in the World Junior Squash Championship and left junior ranks at the end of 1982. You're welcome for Chris Dittmar. Chris reached the British Open quarter-final where he met Jahangir Khan. It took his senior ranking from 26 to 13. And what's your ranking now?
I've moved up to 9, Tony.
Good boy. And what about the great effort to make the World Open final?
Well, I suppose I was the most surprised person of the lot. It was just an incredible week. I never planned it that way. In fact, my form up to the World Open was probably the worst it's ever been, and I was all set to fly home. But a quick word to my father over the phone and a few people at home and lifted my spirits, I think.
Terrific. Now, describe Jahangir Khan's game. What is it about his game that's so intimidating?
To be honest, he's all round. You know, he's just strong all round. He's super fit, so it's pointless trying to outlast him. He's got incredible shots, so I couldn't get any of them back. They were all winners. And basically, he's bloody mean. He wouldn't give anything away, and that was just about it, I think.
Is there a similar gap between you and Jahangir Khan now, as there was, of course, between our Jeff Hunt and Jahangir Khan at this time of Khan's career?
No, I think it'd be fair to say Jahangir at the moment is a fair way ahead of the rest of the squash players on the world circuit. We all realise he's that good. I suppose a lot of the other players have just about given up. A big psychological sort of thing he's got over them. But I'm out there fighting. I'd like to catch him for a couple of years.
It's a great sporting family, so you've got sporting blood in those veins and arteries of yours. Father and 2 uncles played for Port, and Len, of course, was Australian welter or heavy champion?
It was welterweight champion for 2 years, I think, back in the 50s. Yeah, but my father, I say he played league football. He played 1 game, so but I suppose his 2 brothers were more famous. There was Wally and Michael, and they played quite a lot of games for Port Adelaide. Wally went on to play for South Australia.
Chip off the old block. Here he is, Chris Dittmar. Good luck,
Thanks
Chris.
Very much.
Alan McGilvray hands him a Caltex News Silver Oscar. The captain of the Australian team for the World Netball Championship, Julie Franco. Australia has won 5 of the 6 World Championships since 1963. And not even cruciate ligament problems or cartilage operations have stopped you becoming captain.
No, I was really proud, Tony, when it was announced, and I was really shocked, and I was just really proud to be a member of that World Championship team.
And is this South Australian team still invincible? It seems so.
Yes, we've won 5 in a row, and this year in September we're going for 6 in a row.
And Australia has won 5 of 6 World Championships, which I mentioned in your introduction.
That's right, we've won 5 outright, and we actually came a triple tie back in '79 with Trinidad, Tobago and New Zealand.
Now, when is the next world title and where?
The next world title is in Glasgow in 1987.
And what is it about our style that the others don't seem to be able to match?
We've got a very, could say, tight man-to-man defence, which none of the other countries seem to have mastered like Australia, and we want to keep that under wraps, I think.
Yeah. And what's your part going to be in this in the future? Because I think that's a key element in Australia's fortunes, don't you?
Well, I haven't really decided. I'm going to play the Nationals at the end of the year, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do after that and hopefully make the national team again.
Top netballer, Julie Franco.
Thank you.
The News and Caltex Sportstar Awards now pay tribute to that tennis champion, John Fitzgerald.
Thanks, man.
First LeConte, and then world number 4, Yannick Noah, to lead Australia to victory over France in the Davis Cup semi-final.
Here come the Aussie team members, Pat Cash, Mark Edmondson, Paul McNamee.
And since then, of course, Kooyong and a greater triumph.
Yeah, it was a big thing, Tony. It's by far the biggest occasion in my life, and you know, probably will be hard to top. I think again, I was just very thankful to have the opportunity of getting into a final, and I think to play a singles match while I was there was an extra bonus.
Yeah, were you disappointed, however, that Verlander of Sweden brought to an end your previously unbeaten record in singles in the Davis Cup?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to perform, mate, after you've had a couple of shampoos in the shower before you get out there.
That was in celebration because we'd already won it by then, right?
We had won it, but I really did try to win that match, and I think it was a pretty tough assignment, really. You know, as soon as Pat won, I think the whole pressure and the nervous energy that I was using up before I went out onto the court really did disappear from my whole system, and you know, as well as feeling relaxed, I think I did feel exceptionally tired.
Was it a case of a championship team beating a team of champions?
Oh, I think so. I remember back in my Australian rules days out in the country, I used to appreciate, I think, team sports very much, and it's one thing I've probably missed playing tennis, but getting back into the Davis Cup situation has really brought that team atmosphere back into my tennis.
Playing McEnroe, what kind of an experience is that?
Not a good one very often. He's a great player. He's playing very well at the moment, actually, the last month or 6 weeks. And I think more than anything, his hands and his reflexes and eye-hand coordination are so exceptional, and is what makes him a great player. I think, you know, his attitude on the court is probably not as good as it could be.
No, is he as obnoxious as he presents himself to the world?
Oh, I think so. No, I should follow up with that. No, he's you know, he talks to you in the dressing room. He's got a close circle of friends on the circuit, but you know, he's civil when he's off the court. He's just not very civil when he's on the court, that's all.
Yeah. Davis Cup man at right place at the right time, John Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Another racket sport and squash for the second time tonight. One of the great success stories of the News and Caltex Award, Vicky Cardwell. Vicky Cardwell, winner of 4 News Caltex Awards since 1978, successfully defended her British Open, recognised as the world's top event, and she won it for the 4th time. Now, let's speak about the local scene, because I see you won the Australian final in 24 minutes. That doesn't augur well for what happens once you give the game away.
That was an unfortunate final for Sue Coggs. I've been her bogey woman over the years. I won my first British Open championship against Sue, and in fact, my first visit to England in 1978, when I played in my first British Open, I actually put Sue out of the British Open in the semi-final, and Sue was seeded 1 for that event. So since that time, Sue sort of, I think she shakes at the knees every time she thinks about playing me. And as a consequence, I think on the occasion of the Australian Open final this year, she was very much aware of my desperation to win everything within Australia before I took on the task of winning my first World Open.
In all these great successes you've had, can you trace the thing back to one great piece of advice that made the world of difference?
Win.
Attitude.
Attitude must always be positive in terms of believing in your own ability and reinforcing that ability by preparation. Sir James Hardy was referring earlier to preparation, and there couldn't have been truer words said. You put in the preparation, and it gives you the confidence to know that your body's going to support what your mind wants it to do. And once you've established that communication between body and mind, well, the world's your oyster.
Brilliant career, brilliant performance, Vicky Cardle. Hands together for 11 times national cycling champion, Kelvin Poole. Kelvin was nominated for his 3 gold medals at the Australian Amateur Cycling Championships, despite a preparation curtailed because of a series of injuries. And what were those injuries we spoke of?
I broke my ankle just prior to Christmas last year, and that put me off the bike for about 3 weeks.
But you broke your skull too?
I've done that once or twice. I fractured my skull. Yeah.
It's a dangerous game.
It's a terrible sport.
Yeah, and what about this muscle rip?
That's only just recent. That's a new one. Just after this Christmas, I was in Tasmania and I had a fall in the 6-day event there with fellow South Australian Gary West. And I've been off the bike for 3 weeks, and we had our state titles last week. And I think I've trained about 4 days for that, something like that. I raced there. I got 1 bronze medal, which I hope will put me in the state team to go to Sydney.
Now, last March you won the National Pursuit. Now, Turter, Steele, Bishop, we've really produced some good ones.
Yeah. I hope to go one better. I'm going back to Perth tomorrow to train with Steele and a few of the people over there in preparation for our Australian titles. The fall's put me behind a little bit, and I feel I have to go back there and train 7 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day, to come up in time.
And in the world titles, you did pretty well too.
Yeah, we finished 4th in the world titles this year in Zurich.
That's the best an Australian team has ever done?
Yeah, that's our best, and it's really good. I was very happy with the team's performance, not so much my performance. I wasn't going as well as I should have there, or as well as I can. But Michael Turter and Gary West, who are also South Australians, we finished 4th, so that was a good show.
They're Iron Men, the cyclists, aren't they? Kelvin Poole, well done.
Okay.
As you all know, we have a new swimming star, and here she is. For the news and Caltex, Anna McVan. Anna at 14 was star of the Australian age titles in Melbourne, winning gold medals in the 200 metres medley, the 200 freestyle, 400 freestyle and 200 backstroke, plus silvers in the 100 backstroke and freestyle. Well, are you 14 or 15 now?
15.
Just turned 15, have you?
Yes.
And in the pre-Olympic event, you came second in the 1500 metres, didn't you?
Yes.
To the American girl, what's her name?
Tiffany Cullen.
Tiffany. Now, what's she like?
She's a nice girl, but, well, you're not really supposed to like your competition, so there you go.
You can be competitive and like your opponents. Of course you can.
Yeah, okay then.
Are you still ranked second in the world?
Over 1500. Since they've had the European Championships and the American Nationals, I think I've dropped a few places to about 6th now.
What's your 800 metre standing?
That's 8th. Behind 3 Americans, I think, and 4 East Germans, so there you go.
And what's your biggest wish?
To make the Olympic team.
And you're certain to do that, aren't you?
I hope so.
Well, I'm sure so. Now, you're the 6th of 6 kids in the family?
Yes.
And other members of the family are also pretty good at water sports too.
Well, all my brothers and sisters swam. My eldest brother, John, won a couple of national medals, and my sister Sue swam in nationals. And now they're playing water polo, so...
She's unbelievable, you know. In 12 months, she broke 131 state records in various age groups. Anna McVan.
Thank you.
Alan McGilvray hands her another Caltex Oscar. Again, quite a lineup, isn't it? Just terrific. A member of Australia's World Championship hockey side, Trevor Smith. Trevor has been named for the third time in a world team, and on this occasion his fellow players voted him captain. But before that, he won Player of the Series at the National Championships, but he was axed by selectors from the national team against India. What was that all about?
Well, I'm still not quite sure. I think what they're trying to do is get absolutely the best 16 players to compete in the Olympic Games this year. And seeing I'm getting on a bit in age, I think they wanted to see that there were others in Australia who maybe could take my positions.
Well, they found out now that you've got to be there, right?
Well, I hope so.
In percentage terms, how much better is this Australian team now than the other sides which I've seen play and win their medals in the Olympics?
I think the last time we competed at the Olympics in Montreal, we gained the silver medal. Since then, we've learned how to compete against other countries, two different styles in hockey, the close marking Europeans and the open hockey of the Asians. Before we could only play well against the Asians and consistently beat them, but now we can beat both. We've got a very experienced team. Probably four players have played over 150 internationals for Australia, so we've got the experience there. They've built in some youth in the last 12 months, and we've won the last 4 tournaments, world tournaments that we've played in.
Yeah,
we should be good for a gold, I think.
Won the last 4 international tournaments. Well, it augurs well for Australia at Los Angeles. We really could pull off a gold there, and you'll be playing a part in it. Good wishes, Trevor Smith.
Thanks very much.
3 Oscars still to be collected before the gold one. Long-distance runner Lisa O'Day Martin is in Oregon, so representing her tonight is her mother, Shirley O'Day. In December, Lisa ran her first marathon in 2 hours, 32 minutes, 21 seconds, the second fastest debut marathon ever run by a woman. The time broke the Australian record by 5 minutes and the Olympic qualifying standard by 8. Lisa won a scholarship to the University of Oregon, right, Shirley?
Yes, she did. Actually, when she went over to the University of Oregon, she didn't have a full scholarship, but she had some assistance. But after, I think it was 1 semester there, her 400-metre hurdles had come up so well that she was put onto full scholarship. And it wasn't until the following year that she decided to change her event and try distance running.
Well, that was a remarkable change because she was a South Australian and she was a US hurdles champ, wasn't she? She won titles there.
Yes, she won the junior national title hurdles, I think it was back in about 1979. She was fortunate in the year after she'd done her matriculation, we had an American physical education teacher on our staff, Arden Herr, a very dear friend of the family, and he arranged for Lisa to go over to Clackamas Community College, which was a junior college, not a 4-year university. And it was during that time, when she was a student at Clackamas, that competing for that college and in their junior national titles, she won that event. Of course, all credit there goes to Dr. John Daly, who was a coach back here in Australia. And when she went to USA to win that title, of course, the work had been largely done back here.
Remarkable change from sprint capacity with hurdling and then go to a marathon. Now, as a mother, are you in favour of girls running marathons?
Oh, I don't mind in the slightest. In fact, I believe, as many sports scientists have, not many, but several sports scientists have suggested, that perhaps the marathon event is the one event in which women may be able to not only equal men, but may be better men. So let the girls have a go.
Shock, horror. Thank you, Shirley, very much indeed. Shirley O'Day, speaking for Lisa O'Day Martin. We're under siege again. 2 to go and then the gold. And the standard, of course, is maintained. Super surfer Dwayne Ties. Dwayne won the World Ironman title held in Hawaii and was second in the 1-mile Malibu event held in conjunction with it. And in recent times, you've been almost unbeatable, young fella. Has Grant Kennedy's reign over?
Well, no. A couple of weeks ago, I competed against him in Maroochydore, and he won an event there, which is the East West Airlines Carnival. I managed to get fourth, so he's not over yet. He's still powering.
Now, right, in June, you went north to Queensland, where he sort of hangs out, and you have been under the guidance of Tracy Wickham's coach.
Yeah, Laurie Lawrence. My swimming wasn't the best. It was all right, but it wasn't good enough to actually beat Grant last year. And so I had a friend who gave me some good advice, and off I trotted to Brisbane to train with Laurie, and that took up about 6 months or so.
Just quickly describe the event and the training that goes into it.
Well, the event consists of approximately a 400-metre swim, followed by a board paddle on the Malibu board for about 500 metres, then a surf ski paddle, which is like a kayak, for approximately 500 metres as well, and that can be any order. They draw it on the day. And then there's a sprint up the beach after, and it takes about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15.
It's tough stuff. Now, tell us about the preparation that goes into it.
Well, I try and get in about 5 hours a day, 4 to 5 hours a day, and that's doing 6 to 8 kilometres swimming, probably 10 kilometres maybe a day on the board, and a bit more on the ski. So, and then I try and fit in some gym and some running just to break the monotony of going up and down the trails.
I can believe it, all the seams are broken on his tuxedo. All the best to you, Dwayne. Congratulations, magnificent performance. Another one. Wayne Tighe, Alan McGilvray and Joanna Moore. 4 South Australian members of Australia's 8-man crew at the World Championships completes the qualifiers for the 1983 Sportstar. Tim Willoughby, Bruce Keynes, John Quigley and Gavin Threadgold. At the World Titles, Australia won the heats in the fastest time, downing favourites East Germany and becoming the first Australian 8 to go through to the finals without rowing a repechage. We finished third, fellas, right? Come in here. 2 on each side, eh? Much closer. We've got to get you here near to these, right? We finished third, so that was great. Got rather inferior feeling. You wouldn't think I was 6'1", would you? When will the Games crew be picked?
April. We have a selection trial this weekend, and then we have another one in a further 3 weeks, and then the Nationals and the King's Cup Regatta in Tasmania at the beginning of April.
What happened at Ballarat, though?
It's early in the season, and perhaps this year we just haven't done our homework quite as we have in the previous years. It's an ongoing thing, and we look forward to competitions this weekend, actually, to get our back on them.
Tim, wrist tendinitis, how's that?
100%.
All right now? And Bruce, a more intensive approach this year. Will we make it?
Well, I think we will. It's the experience that we've gained this year is tremendous. It's one thing, every year we're bloody new up-and-coming people, and this year we probably didn't have the experience that the New Zealanders are showing each year. They've got an ongoing thing, and I think this year is going to be our year for gold.
And Gavin, how much weight do you have to shed yet? They tell me you're getting cranky.
Only a couple of pounds now.
Only a couple of pounds. Now, this time of 5 minutes and 53 seconds was 13 seconds faster than the winning time at the Moscow Olympics, right?
That's true, but probably more relevance than that is the fact that we beat the reigning Olympic champions in East Germany. Unfortunately, they beat us back about 7 days later in the final, but I think we scared enough people. So hopefully we'll be up there.
Well, here's good luck to them in the King's Cup. It could be 4 in a row for South Australia. We hope so. Our rowing boys have made the final. Well, the gold Oscar is soon to be announced, and that's next in the Caltex News Sportstar of the Year presentation.
The South Australian Sportstar of the Year Awards are presented by Caltex and their distributors. Tolmer Fuel Distributors Keith, servicing Keith and Tintinara areas. Central Fuel Supply Kapunda, servicing Gawler and Lower Northern areas. GW and PR Barch Burkwood, servicing the Adelaide Hills area. Star Petroleum Adelaide, servicing the metropolitan area. and Milton and David Turner, servicing Kangaroo Island. These Caltex distributors are proud to be associated with the South Australian Sports Star of the Year Awards for 1983.
And now a moment to savour. The sports editor of the News, Mike Pilkington, hands to the Premier the envelope which contains the name of the person who is to become the Sports Star of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of South Australia, John Bannon.
Well, thanks very much, Tony, and distinguished guests, sports stars, ladies and gentlemen, this is certainly the great moment and a terribly difficult choice for the judges, I guess. You know, every year we assemble for this event, a premier event in our sporting calendar, I'd say. A couple of things always strike me. Every year I'm surprised at the individual performances and the quality of them. I guess when you're reminded, we've seen them, we've noticed them during the year. Putting them all together, it just shows what an extraordinary impact the talent in South Australia has. There are a lot of great stars in our community in all ranges of sport. And I guess that's the second point, the wide number of sports that are represented. A great thing about the sports stars are that they don't just play in the glamour sports, they're performing across the whole spectrum. And I think that's an incentive to all of us. There's something in sport for every single member of our community. One thing, of course, that stands out. All of them are great ambassadors for Australia and, let's be parochial, for South Australia. You know, the sporting stars represent the peak of their particular sports, and that's got to be encouraged. That's why we develop in South Australia a sports institute, and there's a lot of support for that sort of thing. But I think the chief thing they provide for all of us in the community is inspiration. Inspiration and example, and I guess we've got to thank each and every one of them for that. Now, the great moment's arrived. I've withdrawn the card for the 1983 News Caltex Sportstar of the Year. Thanks to those companies for sponsoring it, thanks for Channel 9 for showing it, and the winner, for the third time, Vicky Cardwell.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I sort of bore you for a short time, I'd actually like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Bannon in particular. A few years ago, when Mr. Bannon was in actual fact leader of the opposition, he sent me a very, very personal note of congratulations. I think it was after my second British Open win, and I thought that was a tremendous thing for a man in his position to do, and in such a personal fashion. I think it indicates Mr. Bannon's interest in sport, and of course, as we all know, he's not a bad marathon runner himself. Thank you. News Caltex, for the third time, thank you very much. A lot of you are probably aware that I have retired from the international scene. I have not retired from the game. I love the game too much to retire from it. I'd dearly love to spend a half an hour, or probably take longer than that, to list off the people, the associations of people, the groups of people who have assisted me, who have encouraged me, who have helped me right along the way, who have enabled me to achieve what I have managed to achieve. I'm proud to have achieved what I have. I'm glad that I was one of the lucky athletes who have been rewarded with their efforts, because, as you're probably aware, there are a lot of athletes who put the effort in and consequently don't reap the rewards. I'd like to say to the athletes of South Australia and Australia, for the year of 1984, I wish you all the best, and in particular, the eyes of Australia are going to be on you for the Olympic Games. We'll all be with you, our spirit will be with you. We know you've put in the hard work, and we know that you're going to give your best. But if I can just leave you with one piece of advice, you're only as good as your last performance, so make sure your last performance is a winning one. Thank you very much.
An emotional Vicky Hoffman with some homespun and well thought out philosophy. And so let the record book show it. For the third time in South Australia, Vicky Hoffman is the Sports Star of the Year. Good night from the news and good night from Caltex.